Welcome to Zoe Stories. Stepmom's special drink made me unrecognizable. The first thing I remember that morning was the smell of vanilla drifting through the house. My stepmom always had this strange routine. Every morning before sunrise, she'd be in the kitchen, humming softly while blending something in her sleek silver mixer. The hum was low, rhythmic, almost hypnotic. My name's Steven, 22 years old, freshly graduated, and still trying to figure out my life. My dad had passed away 3 years ago, leaving behind a house too big for 2 people and a silence too deep for words. After the funeral, Emma, my stepmom, had stayed. She wasn't that much older than me, maybe mid-30s, with a beauty that never quite felt real. Flawless skin, elegant posture, and eyes that saw more than they should. At first, I kept my distance. She was always polite, always composed, always watching. But lately, I'd noticed something different. Her attention lingered. Her questions became personal. And then there was the drink. Every morning, she made it. Pinkish, creamy, almost glowing under the kitchen light. I used to joke about it. Trying to stay young forever? I'd tease. She'd just smile and say, "Some things aren't meant for everyone, Steven." But that day something was off. The air felt heavier. I walked downstairs in my wrinkled t-shirt and loose pajama pants, rubbing my eyes. Emma was already at the counter, pouring her mysterious drink into a tall crystal glass. She looked up and smiled, that same unsettlingly perfect smile. "Good morning, sweetheart," she said softly. Her voice was smooth. Too smooth, like silk covering a knife. "Morning," I mumbled, heading for the coffee machine. But she stopped me. "You look tired," she said, tilting her head. "You should try something different today. Coffee won't fix what's missing." I frowned. "Missing?" She slid the glass toward me. The drink shimmered faintly under the light. "Just try a sip," she urged. "It's special. Made with love." I hesitated. I didn't know what special meant in Emma's world. She was always experimenting with new beauty treatments, herbal concoctions, detox formulas. Once, I'd even caught her talking to herself in the mirror, whispering something about perfect balance. Still, I didn't want to be rude. So I took the glass. It was cold in my hand, heavier than I expected. The first sip tasted sweet, like strawberries and cream, but with a strange lingering heat that crawled down my throat. She watched me closely, too closely. "Well?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. I swallowed and forced a smile. "Pretty good." "Good," she said, smiling faintly. "Finish it. It'll help you find yourself." That phrase stuck with me all day. Find yourself. I didn't know why, but it made me uneasy. Emma had a way of saying things that sounded normal on the surface but carried something deeper beneath. Later that afternoon, I was alone in my room, staring at my laptop screen, trying to apply for jobs I didn't care about. But my mind kept drifting. My body felt strange, lighter, tingling, like every breath was charged. I got up and looked in the mirror, and for the briefest second, I swore my reflection shimmered. My jawline looked softer. My lips, pinker? I blinked. It was gone. Just exhaustion, I told myself. Or maybe stress. When I came downstairs again, Emma was waiting. She was wearing a pale pink dress, the kind that looked delicate but somehow commanding. She smiled when she saw me. "Feeling better?" she asked. "Yeah, I guess. Just a little weird." "Weird can be good," she said cryptically. "Sometimes we have to lose control to see who we really are." I laughed awkwardly. "That sounds like one of those Instagram quotes." She chuckled softly. "Maybe. But there's truth in it." Then she stepped closer, brushing a stray hair from my forehead. Her fingers were warm. Almost too warm. "You remind me of your father," she said quietly. "But softer. Kinder. More open." Her tone made my stomach twist. Before I could reply, she turned away and said, "Drink more tomorrow morning. It works best when it's consistent." That night, I couldn't sleep. My skin felt hypersensitive. Every brush of the bedsheet felt electric. My dreams were vivid. Colors melting, voices echoing. A woman's laughter, soft and distant. When I woke up, the mirror looked different again. My face looked smoother. My eyes looked bigger, brighter. And my voice, when I said hello to my reflection, sounded higher than usual. Panic clawed up my throat. Was I losing it? I ran downstairs. Emma was there, as always, blending her drink. She turned, smiled, and said calmly, "You look radiant today, Stephen." I froze. She wasn't surprised. She wasn't confused. She knew. What's happening to me? I asked, my voice trembling. She simply poured another glass and said, "You're becoming what you were meant to be." And for the first time I saw it, the faint shimmer in her eyes. Like she'd been waiting for this moment all along. The morning light spilled through the curtains like a soft spotlight, revealing the world in gold. But I didn't feel golden. I felt wrong. When I touched my face, my skin felt smooth. Too smooth. My hands, smaller. Even my breathing sounded lighter. Softer. I stared at the mirror again, heart pounding in my chest. The reflection staring back wasn't just tired. It was different. My features looked delicate, refined. My lips had a faint tint of pink that wasn't there before. "Okay, this isn't real," I whispered. "It's just the drink. Some side effect. It'll fade." I grabbed my phone, ready to Google every possible symptom. But then I froze. My reflection moved. Half a second after I did. I stumbled back. "What the hell?" From downstairs, Emma's voice floated up like a song. "Stephen, breakfast is ready." I hesitated. My chest felt tight. Every instinct screamed not to go down, but curiosity dragged me anyway. When I walked into the kitchen, Emma was already setting the table. She looked serene, her hair perfectly styled, her dress crisp. Like she'd stepped out of a dream. She looked at me and smiled. "You look wonderful this morning." I blinked. "What do you mean?" Her eyes glinted. "The drink suits you. You're glowing." I swallowed hard. "I think it's doing something to me. My face feels weird. My voice sounds different." She chuckled softly, sliding another glass toward me. "Change can feel strange at first. But trust me, your body is just adjusting." "Adjusting to what?" I demanded. Her smile didn't fade. "To who you truly are." Something inside me twisted. "No, Emma. I don't know what's in this stuff, but I'm done drinking it." She stepped closer. Too close. I could smell her perfume. Soft vanilla, just like the drink. Her voice dropped, almost whispering. "You don't have to be afraid of it." "Afraid of yourself." "I'm not afraid." "Then prove it," she said, eyes burning into mine. "One more sip." I froze. My heart raced. And against all logic, I picked up the glass. Just one sip, I told myself. Just to prove her wrong. But the moment it touched my lips, warmth exploded through my chest, rushing to my fingertips, to my skin, to my soul. I gasped. My reflection in the kitchen window flickered. Softer features, longer lashes, a gentler shape. And May just stood there, smiling like she'd been waiting for this exact moment. "That's it," she whispered. "Let it happen." The mirror had become my enemy. Every time I walked past it, I tried not to look, but I always did. Curiosity clawed at me, demanding another glance. And every time I looked, the reflection felt less like me. That morning, sunlight cut through the blinds, striping the floor with gold. I dragged myself to the bathroom sink, hoping cold water might shock me back to normal. But the face staring back at me, it wasn't the one I'd known my whole life. My jaw looked finer, my skin almost airbrushed. My hair, was it my imagination, or was it actually shinier, falling differently over my forehead? I leaned in closer, heart thundering. "What is happening to me?" I whispered. A memory flashed, Emma's calm smile, her words echoing in my mind. "You're becoming who you truly are." My hands shook. I splashed more water on my face, but it didn't help. The changes weren't vanishing. They were settling. Downstairs, Emma was humming again, that same soft tune that somehow filled every corner of the house. I hesitated before going down. But pretending nothing was wrong wasn't helping either. When she saw me, her eyes lit up. "There you are. You slept in," she said. "You look refreshed." Refreshed. I laughed nervously. I look like I've been photoshopped. Her smile didn't falter. You're just noticing what I've seen for a while. What does that even mean? I snapped. You knew this was going to happen, didn't you? She didn't deny it. She just placed a hand over her heart and said softly, I knew you were hiding something beautiful inside. You just needed help bringing it out. That's insane, I said, stepping back. You've been putting something in that drink. She tilted her head, almost amused. Only what you needed. I wanted to scream, but words caught in my throat. Her calmness was unnerving. It wasn't the face of guilt, it was certainty. The rest of the day crawled by. I tried to distract myself with chores, but every reflective surface whispered the same truth. I was changing. The strangest part wasn't the look itself. It was how it felt. The discomfort of my old clothes, the way my movements had subtly shifted, the way my voice softened without me trying. And deep inside, buried beneath fear, something else stirred. A strange, quiet sense of rightness. Like my reflection was showing something I hadn't dared to see before. But I shook it off. This wasn't me. It couldn't be. When EMMA returned from her errands that evening, she found me sitting in the living room, staring blankly at the muted TV. You haven't touched your dinner, she said. I turned to her, anger boiling under the surface. You did this to me. She sighed gently, sitting across from me. Stephen, you're fighting something that doesn't want to hurt you. Then explain this. I shouted. My face, my body, everything's changing. Her eyes softened. Because you needed a mirror, Stephen. You've been lost since your father died. Angry. Closed off. You keep pretending to be something you're not. I stared at her. You think this, whatever you're doing, is therapy? Not therapy, she said quietly. Truth. Her words hit like ice. Truth. I whispered. You think you know who I am? She smiled faintly. I think you're about to find out. That night, I couldn't resist it anymore. I went back to the mirror. I needed to prove, to myself, to her, that I was still me. But when I looked this time, the reflection didn't mimic my hesitation. It smiled back, faintly, almost knowingly. I stepped closer. My pulse hammered. My hands trembled. Stop, I whispered. You're not real. But the reflection's lips parted, just slightly, as if about to speak. And then I heard it. Soft, distant, echoing. Trust her. I stumbled back, breath quickening. My knees nearly gave out. The glass trembled under my touch as the reflection blurred, shimmered, and returned to normal. I stood there in silence, cold sweat running down my back. Something wasn't just changing my body. It was changing everything. And downstairs, I could hear Emma humming again. The same haunting tune. Like she'd been waiting for this moment all along. The next morning, sunlight didn't feel like a gentle arrival. It felt accusatory. Every beam seemed to slice through my skin, highlighting every change that had taken place while I slept. I sat on the edge of my bed, trembling slightly. My pajamas felt different. Softer, more delicate than before. The room smelled faintly of vanilla, the same scent that clung to Emma wherever she went. I tried to ignore it, to act normal, but I couldn't. My reflection in the mirror screamed at me in silence. My face had softened further overnight. My jawline wasn't just finer. It looked entirely different. My lips were plumper, my eyes wider, framed by lashes that seemed impossibly long. The hair at my temples fell with a softness I had never seen before. I touched my cheeks, as if physical proof could convince me this wasn't happening. But it was. It was happening. Downstairs, Emma was already in the kitchen, humming softly as she poured her mysterious drink into a crystal glass. She didn't look up when I entered, but I could feel her eyes on me. You slept well? She asked casually. I swallowed hard. No, I didn't. I mean, everything's changing. She smiled, tilting her head, her eyes sharp yet comforting. Of course. That's why the drink works best when you're relaxed. I glared at her. Relaxed? I feel nothing like myself. She took a step closer, lowering her voice. Stephen, you're still yourself. Just a better version. Someone closer to who you were meant to be. I shivered, though not from cold. There was something in her calm, deliberate words that both terrified and fascinated me. "You've gone too far this time," I muttered, trying to regain control. She chuckled softly. "Control is an illusion. You'll see that soon." By mid-morning, the changes weren't just in my face, they were in the way I moved. My posture had shifted, my gestures more fluid, my balance slightly different. Even walking felt strange. I caught myself practicing in front of the mirror, awkwardly adjusting my stance, feeling as though every movement had to be relearned. I couldn't tell anyone. Not friends, not co-workers, not my father's old friends. No one would understand. And Emma's presence made it impossible to ignore what was happening. She appeared behind me in the reflection, though she hadn't moved from the kitchen. "You're noticing the little things now," she said. "That's good. Awareness is part of the process." I spun around, anger bubbling. "This isn't a process. This is." I paused, realizing the words didn't exist. What was this? A curse? A gift? A trap? My voice, higher than yesterday, caught in my throat. She smiled faintly, placing her hand on my shoulder. Warm. Comforting. Inescapable. "You're ready to let go, Stephen. You can fight it, but why resist what's already inside you?" Hours passed, each one more confusing than the last. The drink had done more than change my body. It had awakened something inside me I didn't know existed. Every glance in the mirror felt like a betrayal. Every step I took in my slightly changed body was both terrifying and thrilling. By evening, I found myself standing in front of the full-length mirror in the living room, studying every inch of the reflection. The figure staring back was me, yet not me. My hair fell past my shoulders in soft waves. My frame was slimmer, more elegant, every movement subtle, deliberate. My eyes. God, my eyes. Shimmered with an unfamiliar vulnerability. I reached up to touch my face. My fingers trembled. The reflection mimicked me perfectly, yet there was something more. It wasn't just a reflection. It was a promise. A warning. A dare. A sound behind me made me jump. Emma's voice, soft but firm. "Are you ready to accept who you are?" I swallowed hard, panic tightening around my chest. I wasn't ready. I didn't want to be ready. But part of me was curious. And curiosity, I realized, had always been dangerous in this house. By nightfall, I was exhausted, mentally and physically. But sleep didn't bring relief, it brought dreams. Dreams of walking down streets in unfamiliar heels, of laughing and being looked at, noticed. Dreams where my reflection whispered secrets I didn't understand. I woke up covered in sweat, my heart hammering, and the first thing I saw was my changing reflection in the dim light. I touched my face. My jawline had softened again overnight. My hands felt delicate. My chest. I didn't want to look, but I couldn't stop myself. The changes were accelerating, unstoppable. And downstairs, Emma hummed the same tune. Waiting. Watching. Patient. Perfect. That night, I realized I was losing control. But what terrified me more was that I didn't entirely want to fight it. The next morning, I woke with a strange mixture of dread and anticipation. The changes were undeniable now. My reflection in the mirror was no longer subtle. My features were softer, my eyes wider and brighter, and my movements almost instinctively graceful. I traced my jawline with trembling fingers, feeling the unfamiliar smoothness. A shiver ran down my spine, not from fear, but from the sheer thrill of it. There was something intoxicating about being different, about carrying a secret that no one else could see. The house was quiet, but I could feel Emma's presence everywhere. She wasn't in the room, yet somehow, I could feel her watching. Her influence, subtle but pervasive, pressed against the edges of my mind. I went downstairs cautiously. Emma was at the kitchen counter, her drink blending quietly in her silver mixer. She glanced up, her smile calm, measured. "You're early," she said. "You look interesting today." I froze. Interesting. She tilted her head, her eyes studying me like an artist examining a canvas. "Yes, you're changing. And that change is beautiful." I swallowed. Beautiful? This is terrifying. Her laugh was soft, almost musical. Sometimes the most terrifying things are also the most liberating. Her words echoed in my mind as I poured myself a glass of the drink. I hesitated, looking at it as if it were a potion from some other world. But the temptation was too strong. One sip, I told myself. One sip to steady my nerves. The moment the liquid hit my tongue, warmth spread through my body. My fingers tingled, my chest felt lighter, and my entire being seemed to hum with energy. My reflection shimmered, subtly shifting in the polished kitchen window. I stepped back, heart pounding. The thrill was undeniable. I was scared, but I was also exhilarated. Over the next few hours, I experimented. Alone in my room, I tried on clothes I had never dared to wear. Soft fabrics, tighter cuts, skirts that felt alien against my legs. Every outfit transformed the way I moved, how I carried myself. It was a delicate balance of vulnerability and power. My reflection in the mirror became a confidant. It didn't judge me. It simply was. And slowly, I began to recognize parts of myself I had never allowed to exist. But with the excitement came guilt. What if someone saw me? What if Emma's intentions weren't as kind as she seemed? By evening, I was walking through the house in one of the outfits I had experimented with. A flowing, soft blouse and fitted pants. My posture was different now. More confident yet uncertain. Every creak of the floorboards sounded like an alarm. Then Emma appeared in the doorway, her eyes glinting with amusement. "You're exploring," she said simply. I froze. I was just... She smiled, stepping closer. "Yes, just discovering yourself." Her calm acceptance unsettled me more than her scrutiny. I had expected judgment, maybe a reprimand, but she only encouraged it. Her words and presence made me question everything I thought I knew about myself. Later that night, I sat in front of the mirror again, reflecting on the day. My body had shifted further. My face was unrecognizable from the person I had been a week ago. But the changes weren't just physical. They were emotional, mental. I felt a strange liberation, a thrill that mingled with fear. Somewhere deep inside, I realized something important. I couldn't go back to being the person I was before. And the thought, instead of frightening me completely, excited me. And all the while from somewhere in the house, I could hear Emma humming. Soft, hypnotic, patient. Waiting. Watching. Guiding. The following morning, I barely recognized the person staring back at me. My reflection had changed again overnight. My features even softer, my movements almost instinctively delicate. My hair fell in smooth waves around my face, framing eyes that now seemed to sparkle with a light I had never seen in myself before. I pressed my fingers to my cheeks. This wasn't just a physical change. It was a transformation of every instinct, every subtle gesture, every part of how I carried myself. My body and mind felt aligned with something I had never fully admitted existed. Panic bubbled beneath the surface, but curiosity and an undeniable thrill kept me rooted to the spot. Downstairs, Emma was already preparing her special drink. The silver mixer whirred softly as the morning sun caught the glass, making it gleam like a jewel. She glanced at me, eyes soft but focused. "You look ready today," she said, almost like a teacher observing a student's progress. "Ready," I repeated, unease tightening in my chest. "For what?" She smiled knowingly. "For yourself." Her words felt both comforting and terrifying. Every sip of her drink had pulled me deeper into this unfamiliar version of myself. And now, there was no going back. I lifted the glass, hesitated, then drank. Warmth rushed through me, a tingling sensation that spread from my fingertips to the tips of my hair. My reflection shimmered in the kitchen window, and I felt an unfamiliar confidence swell within me. The day passed in a blur of small changes that seemed monumental. My movements became more graceful, my posture naturally poised. I experimented further, trying on clothes I would have never dared to touch before. Blouses that draped softly over my shoulders, pants that hugged curves I hadn't had a week ago. Every glance in the mirror made me feel a mixture of fear and exhilaration. Who was I becoming? And did I want to become this person? Emma's presence was constant yet subtle. She didn't instruct me, she guided. Her calm demeanor made me question my own resistance. "It's okay," she said once, placing a hand lightly on my shoulder. "You're allowed to explore who you are." Her touch sent a shiver down my spine. Not fear, exactly, but a heightened awareness of every nerve, every heartbeat. By evening, I found myself alone in the living room, practicing small gestures. How I moved my hands, the tilt of my head, the way I smiled at my reflection in the window. I caught glimpses of myself from different angles, each reflection confirming the same thing. I was becoming someone else, yet at the same time, I was discovering a part of myself I hadn't known existed. And yet, beneath the excitement was a gnawing anxiety. What if I couldn't stop? What if Emma had planned this all along, and I was now trapped in a life I hadn't chosen? I shook my head. No. This wasn't fear. It was reality. And it was exhilarating. Night fell, and I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my thoughts a tangled mix of awe and panic. Every sense felt heightened. Every movement, every breath, every heartbeat seemed amplified. I wasn't just changing on the outside. Something fundamental was shifting within me. From somewhere in the house, I could hear Emma humming again. Soft, almost hypnotic. Waiting. Watching. Guiding. I realized with both terror and thrill that my life as I had known it was over. The transformation wasn't just physical. It was emotional, mental, irrevocable. And deep down, I felt something I hadn't expected. A quiet, electric anticipation of what the next step would bring. The house was unusually quiet that afternoon. The hum of the fridge, the soft tick of the wall clock, and my own shallow breathing were the only sounds. I had just finished experimenting with another outfit. Soft pastel blouse, fitted pants, hair pinned back in a delicate style, and I was still grappling with the reflection staring back at me. I had grown more comfortable in my new form, more aware of how I moved and how my presence filled the room. But there was still a tight knot of anxiety in my chest. Something about Emma's calmness and her constant influence over me had shifted from unsettling to controlling. And then the doorbell rang. I froze, heart leaping into my throat. Visitors were rare. Friends? No. Colleagues? None expected. Emma's voice floated from the kitchen, calm and measured. Answer it, Stephen. Don't leave someone waiting. I swallowed hard and walked to the door, every nerve on fire. Peeking through the peephole, I saw a man in a crisp suit, holding a folder. A salesman? A neighbor? No. His face struck me like a sudden jolt of fear. He knew my father. I opened the door. Hello, I said, my voice slightly higher than usual. Stephen? The man said, scanning me carefully. His brow furrowed. You're different. Just a new look, I stammered. He stepped closer. Your father. He mentioned you'd moved in with your stepmother. Emma. My pulse quickened. I could feel the adrenaline in my veins. Something in his tone. It wasn't casual. It was measuring. Observing. Judging. Yes, that's her, I replied cautiously. The man's eyes narrowed slightly. Is she around? She's busy, I said quickly. Can I help you? He shifted his weight. I suppose that depends. I came regarding your father's affairs. Some documents need your signature. Panic began to claw at me. Documents? Signature? If he sees me like this. I stepped aside, gesturing him in. Okay, come in. But she's not here right now. As he entered, I felt a twinge of self-consciousness. Every step I took seemed to echo, highlighting the changes in my body, the subtle grace in my movements, the unfamiliar softness in my voice. He looked around, clearly noting the subtle femininity in the room, decor, lighting, furniture choices, but his attention kept returning to me. You've changed, Stephen, he said quietly, almost to himself. I tensed. Changed? What do you mean? He smiled faintly, shaking his head. Your father would have been surprised. But, pleasantly so, I think. I blinked. Pleasantly? Was he complimenting me, or hinting at something else? Minutes stretched into an hour. He asked questions, handed me forms, and waited for signatures. Every time I moved, every time my reflection caught in the glass of the picture frames, my heart skipped a beat. And all the while, Emma's presence loomed. She hadn't appeared yet, but I could feel her influence like a shadow, watching, guiding, testing me. I excused myself once to pour a glass of water, my hands trembling. When I returned, the man's eyes were fixed on me again. You're extraordinary, he said finally. Has she, your stepmother, always had this effect on you? I froze. His words carried double meaning. Was he noticing the changes, or sensing the psychological hold Emma had on me? I couldn't answer. My throat felt tight. The reflection of my new self stared at me from the window, watching, judging, confirming. Suddenly, the sound of a car pulling into the driveway echoed through the room. My heart leapt. "Is that Emma?" the man asked, tilting his head. I looked toward the window. In an instant, panic surged. If she comes in now, and he sees me like this. I tried to steady myself. My reflection in the window shimmered again, mirroring my rising panic. My new body felt delicate, vulnerable. Every instinct screamed to hide, to cover, to disappear. And then I heard her voice, soft yet commanding, from behind me. "Stephen." I turned slowly. Emma stood there, flawless, composed, her eyes flicking between the man and me. A faint smile played on her lips, like she'd been expecting this exact scenario. The man's gaze shifted rapidly, noticing the dynamic immediately. "You orchestrated this?" he asked cautiously, glancing from Emma to me. She only smiled. "I guided him," she said simply. The tension in the room was electric. Every heartbeat felt amplified. My body was trembling, not just from fear, but from the intoxicating thrill of the moment. I realized painfully that I was no longer just Stephen. I was someone else entirely, shaped by her influence, trapped in a transformation I couldn't yet control. And the man, someone I had trusted, someone connected to my father, was seeing it all. The room felt impossibly small. Every heartbeat echoed in my chest like a warning bell. The man, my father's old associate, was watching me, observing every subtle movement, every tremor of my hands. His eyes darted between Emma and me, sharp, calculating, as if he could sense the invisible strings tying me to her. I wanted to speak, to explain that this was just a temporary transformation, a weird phase, but the words caught in my throat. My voice, now softer and lighter, sounded strange even to me. Every syllable felt foreign, revealing more of me than I intended. Emma, calm and poised, crossed the room with quiet authority. She moved like a shadow, almost invisible yet impossible to ignore. Her gaze never left the man, but there was a subtle intensity in her eyes as she looked at me. A warning. A challenge. "You've seen it now," she said, voice smooth, almost teasing. "There's no hiding who he really is." My stomach twisted. Who I really am. I didn't know anymore. The reflection in the window, the figure in the mirror, even the body I had inhabited this past week, all felt both familiar and alien. I was losing control, and it scared me, yet a strange thrill surged through me. The man cleared his throat. I don't know what to say." His brow furrowed, curiosity battling caution. "Is this natural?" Emma shook her head slightly, smiling faintly. "It's an awakening. He's finally becoming himself." I swallowed hard, unsure whether to laugh, scream, or cry. My heart raced. Every fiber of my being screamed to resist, but deep down, I realized, resistance was futile. I was no longer just Stephen. I was someone else. Minutes passed like hours. The man began examining the documents, glancing up occasionally, eyes inadvertently lingering on me. I shifted nervously, feeling the weight of exposure pressing down. Every instinct screamed that I could be discovered at any moment. Suddenly, a loud crash came from the kitchen. My heart jumped. The man looked up sharply, alarmed. Emma's calm demeanor never wavered, but I felt a surge of panic. "What?" he began. "It's nothing," she said softly, though the faintest smirk tugged at her lips. I realized then that she had orchestrated this entire encounter, not maliciously, but as a test of how far I had come, of how well I could navigate the world in this transformed state. Alone for a moment, I glanced at my reflection in the window. The light of the late afternoon cast a golden glow over my features. My hair fell softly around my shoulders, my hands delicate, my posture elegant. The reflection seemed almost alive, challenging me silently. "This is who you are now," it seemed to say. My pulse quickened. I touched my cheeks, tracing the unfamiliar softness. My chest tightened, not with fear alone, but with the strange thrill of the secret I carried. No one else knew, no one else could understand. And the more I embraced it, the more powerful I felt. The man finally looked up, setting the documents aside. "Stephen, or whoever you are now," he said slowly, eyes narrowing. "You're different. Something has changed you. I can't explain it, but it suits you." I froze. "Suits me?" Emma smiled, approvingly this time. "I've guided him, yes. But the change, it's his own. He's learning to embrace it." My stomach twisted. I wanted to argue, to deny, to fight back. But every instinct screamed against it. I couldn't. Not anymore. And deep inside, beneath the panic and fear, a spark of exhilaration ignited. This secret, this transformation, was mine alone. And for the first time, I felt the intoxicating thrill of power that came with carrying something no one else could touch, no one else could understand. By the time the man left, documents signed and questions half answered, I was trembling. Not from fear alone, but from the intensity of the day. Emma's calm, knowing presence lingered like a shadow in the corners of the room. "You handled it well," she said softly, brushing past me. "But there's more to come." I nodded, breathless, heart racing, knowing she was right. The danger wasn't over. The transformation wasn't complete. And the secret I carried, my new self, was still fragile, still precariously balanced on the edge between exposure and concealment. I realized, with a mixture of awe and terror, that my life had irrevocably changed. I was no longer the person I had been. And yet, in the midst of panic and uncertainty, I couldn't deny the thrill that surged through me. The reflection in the window seemed to smile back knowingly, as if to say, "You're ready. Are you ready for what comes next?" The following day dawned gray and tense. Rain streaked the windows, echoing my inner turmoil. Every sound in the house felt amplified. The drip of water from the sink, the distant rumble of thunder, the faint hum of the refrigerator. It was a world heightened, tense, like every sense had been tuned to detect danger. I moved cautiously through the house, aware of how different I felt. The changes were more than physical now. They influenced the way I thought, the way I carried myself. My movements were lighter, more deliberate. Every glance in a reflective surface reminded me that I was no longer fully Stephen. And yet, the thrill of secrecy lingered, tantalizing and dangerous. Emma appeared as usual, serene, perfectly composed. She had a way of entering a room that made it impossible to ignore her presence. Today, however, there was something sharper in her gaze, a hint of warning. "Be careful," she said softly, her tone layered. "You never know who might notice." I shivered. Her words were simple but loaded. The man yesterday had seen something. Could others? Would someone recognize me? Before I could respond, a knock at the door made my heart leap into my throat. A neighbor, early, holding a basket of baked goods. A friendly visit. Innocent. Harmless. And yet, my panic flared. I had to remain calm. Mustn't reveal anything. I opened the door with a careful smile, my hands trembling ever so slightly. "Hi. Thank you for coming by." The neighbor smiled, stepping in. "I thought I'd drop these off, just wanted to say hello to the new, resident." Resident. That word made me freeze. Not resident in general, but new resident. The implication that I had settled in, and that someone was noticing me now, was terrifying. As she chatted, I noticed the way she looked at me. Subtle glances that lingered just a fraction too long. Observing my gestures, my movements, the way I held myself. Emma appeared behind me in the reflection of the kitchen window. "Relax," she whispered, her tone deceptively soft. "They see what they see. Let it be." I wanted to argue, to protest. But her calm confidence radiated, grounding me in a way I hadn't expected. The neighbor left soon after, unaware of the storm she had nearly unleashed. I exhaled, hands trembling, realizing how fragile this new life really was. One small observation, one curious glance, and everything could unravel. Later that evening, Emma approached me with a quiet intensity. "You're doing well," she said. "But you must understand, the world outside is not as forgiving as the walls of this house." Her words were sharp, cautioning yet oddly seductive in their authority. I knew she was right. My reflection in the window seemed to nod in agreement. Every movement, every choice, now carried consequences. And then she added something that made my stomach twist. "There's someone else coming. Someone who may see more than they should. Be ready." I froze. Someone else? More than they should. My mind raced. Could I hide myself again? Could I escape detection? My reflection shimmered in the glass, as if whispering, "You can't hide anymore. Are you ready to face it?" Night fell, and I sat by the window, watching raindrops streak down the glass. The house felt impossibly quiet, yet charged with expectation. Emma's calm presence was a shadow in the corner of the room, silent yet commanding. I realized the truth. The thrill of secrecy, the exhilaration of transformation. It was addictive, but it was also dangerous. Every step, every gesture, every inch of my body carried new meaning. And now, someone else would see it too. The storm outside mirrored my own inner chaos. My reflection in the window shimmered again, confident, knowing, unafraid. I knew then that the next encounter would define everything. My secret, my transformation, my very identity. It all hung on a knife's edge. And for the first time, fear and excitement blended into a single sharp pulse. I was ready. The next morning, the tension in the house was palpable. Rain from the previous day had left the streets glistening, reflecting the gray light of dawn, and even the air inside the house felt thick with anticipation. I moved cautiously, every step measured, every breath shallow. My reflection in the hallway mirror caught my eye, and I realized how fragile I had become. Delicate, elegant, and utterly exposed. Emma appeared as always, serene and flawless, her presence filling the room like a quiet storm. Today, however, there was a sharpness in her gaze that set my nerves on edge. "Today is a test," she said softly, almost cryptically. "Are you ready to see how far you've come?" My stomach twisted. Test. I nodded hesitantly, unsure of what she meant. But I knew instinctively, she wouldn't push me unless she was certain I could handle it. Before I could ask, the doorbell rang sharply, cutting through the quiet. My pulse quickened. Visitors at this hour were rare, and the anticipation of exposure made my hands tremble. Emma's eyes gleamed faintly. "Go. Answer it. Don't panic. Trust yourself." I took a deep breath and opened the door. Standing there was a woman I didn't recognize. Sharp-eyed, poised, holding a folder, and exuding an air of authority. She scanned me carefully, her gaze lingering longer than necessary. "You must be Stephen," she said, her voice calm but precise. "I'm here on behalf of your father's company. Some documents require your attention." I swallowed hard. My reflection in the glass behind her shimmered subtly. Mocking, daring, confirming everything I had feared. I gestured her inside, trying to maintain composure, though every muscle in my body screamed panic. As she entered, her gaze didn't leave me. She looked at my posture, my hands, the subtle grace in my movements, the new contours of my face. I felt every glance like a blade against my nerves. Emma appeared silently behind me, her eyes fixed on the woman with a predator's patience. "Stephen," she whispered, "show her who you are now. Don't falter." I froze. Show her who I am? My body, my face, my voice, all still foreign to me. Every instinct screamed to shrink, hide, run. Yet Emma's calm authority and the thrill of secrecy pushed me forward. Minutes passed like hours. The woman went through documents, asked questions, and occasionally looked up, clearly noticing my presence. Her eyes lingered, analyzing, calculating, as if trying to measure who, or what, I had become. I felt the fragility of my secret, the precarious balance I was walking. One wrong gesture, one misstep, and it could all collapse. My reflection shimmered in the window, confident and daring, as if taunting me, "You can't hide anymore." Finally, the woman stood, preparing to leave. Her gaze met mine directly for the first time. "You're different," she said quietly, almost reverently. "I can't explain it, but you've changed. And yet, it suits you." My chest tightened. "Suits me?" Emma's smile was faint, approving. "He's finding himself," she said simply. Alone later, after the visitor left, I sat by the window, hands trembling. Every sense felt heightened, the faint tick of the clock, the whisper of the wind, the distant rumble of traffic. My reflection shimmered in the glass, showing me a version of myself I barely recognized. The thrill of secrecy, the rush of transformation, the terror of exposure, they blended into a single sharp pulse. My life had changed irrevocably. And deep down, I knew the ultimate test was still to come. The house felt charged that evening, as though it were holding its breath. Shadows stretched long across the walls, flickering in the soft lamplight. Every sound, footsteps, the hum of the refrigerator, even my own breathing, was amplified. I could feel the tension coiling inside me, ready to snap. I stood in front of the full-length mirror, brushing my hair back, adjusting the soft blouse Emma had encouraged me to wear. My reflection looked back with confidence I didn't fully feel. Every inch of me had been transformed, the delicate softness of my features, the subtle curves of my frame, the fluid grace of my movements. Yet beneath that exterior, fear and exhilaration battled violently. A sudden knock at the door startled me. My pulse skyrocketed. The timing was uncanny, almost deliberate. Emma's calm voice floated from the kitchen. "Answer it, Stephen. Don't hesitate." I hesitated anyway. My hands trembled slightly as I opened the door. Standing there was someone I least expected. My father's business partner, accompanied by an assistant, both carrying folders and a faint air of authority. Their eyes swept the room, and then slowly they fell upon me. The assistant's mouth opened, closed, then reopened. You've changed," she said softly, almost in disbelief. I don't even know where to start." I froze, my heart pounding. This was it, the ultimate revelation. My secret, my transformation, my new identity. Everything was exposed to people who had no right to see it. Emma appeared beside me, perfectly poised, her eyes gleaming with control. "Yes," she said softly, almost smugly. "He's changed. And he's embracing it." I could feel the weight of their gazes pressing down on me. Every movement, every subtle gesture was under scrutiny. My reflection in the window shimmered, mocking, daring me to falter. "You're different," the partner said slowly. "But somehow it suits you." The words hit me like a thunderclap. Suits me? What did that even mean? And yet, a strange thrill coursed through my veins. Recognition, acceptance, fear, desire, all tangled into one overwhelming sensation. Minutes stretched, each tick of the clock a countdown to disaster. I realized with a shiver that Emma had orchestrated this encounter, not to embarrass me, but to test me, to see if I could navigate the world in my transformed state. Every instinct screamed to run, to hide, to return to the old version of myself. But that version was gone, vanished, replaced by someone I barely recognized, yet who felt increasingly like me. And the final, undeniable truth hit me. This wasn't just a transformation. It was a revelation of my deepest self. The visitors left, papers signed, questions answered, unaware of the storm they had narrowly avoided witnessing. I slumped against the doorframe, trembling. Emma appeared beside me, placing a gentle hand on my shoulder. "You did well," she said softly. "Better than I expected." I closed my eyes, shivering from exhaustion, exhilaration, and fear. The thrill of secrecy, the danger of exposure, the intoxicating transformation, they had merged into a single undeniable pulse in my chest. My reflection in the mirror shimmered once more, confirming what I already knew. I was no longer just Stephen. I was someone else entirely. Beautiful, unrecognizable, powerful, fragile, and yet, not fully free. The ultimate revelation had arrived. My secret was still mine, but the world was closing in. And tomorrow, I knew, would test me again. The night was quiet, but the air in the house felt heavy, charged with anticipation. Rain had returned, pattering softly against the windows, creating a rhythm that matched the pounding of my heart. Every shadow, every flicker of light, seemed to hold a secret, a warning. I stood in front of the mirror for what felt like the 100th time that evening. My reflection was now fully my own, yet it carried traces of everything Emma had orchestrated. The soft curves, the delicate features, the fluid movements. I barely recognized myself, and yet, deep down, I felt an unfamiliar surge of power and confidence. The thrill of secrecy had become a part of me. Every gesture, every glance, every breath was infused with a duality I had never known. I was both vulnerable and strong, terrified and exhilarated, exposed and untouchable, all at once. But that duality carried danger. I knew it. Every knock at the door, every unexpected visitor, could unravel the delicate balance I had created. The secret I held, my new identity, was fragile, precarious, teetering on the edge of discovery. A sudden sound from the hallway made me freeze. Footsteps. Soft. Deliberate. My heart skipped a beat. "Stephen." Emma's voice came from the shadows, calm and melodic. "You've done well. But the final test is coming." I swallowed hard. "Test? What do you mean?" She didn't answer immediately. Her eyes gleamed in the dim light, calculating, mysterious. "You'll see. Just be ready." The doorbell rang again, sharp and insistent. My pulse thundered in my ears. I hesitated. Who could it be this time? Another visitor? Someone from my father's world? Or someone else? Emma's soft hand on my shoulder steadied me. "Go. Open it. Trust yourself." I took a deep breath, hands trembling, and opened the door. Standing there was someone I never expected. An unfamiliar figure in the shadows, face partially hidden, eyes scanning me intently. My stomach twisted with dread. They paused, clearly taking in my appearance. My reflection shimmered behind me in the glass, and I felt exposed, vulnerable, yet strangely alive. The figure spoke, voice low and deliberate. "You're different. I can see it. And I've come to find out why." Panic surged. Every instinct screamed to hide, to retreat, to revert to the old version of myself. But that person's gaze held me captive, demanding attention, forcing me to confront what I had become. I glanced at Emma, whose calm presence was a paradox, reassuring yet unsettling. She didn't intervene. She let me face it. Let me navigate the unknown. Time seemed to stretch, each second amplified. I realized with a jolt that my life had changed irreversibly. I was no longer merely Stephen. I was someone else, unrecognizable, transformed, and dangerously alluring in a way I had never imagined. The stranger took a step closer, curiosity and intent shining in their eyes. My pulse raced, my breath caught. And then, just as I was about to speak, Emma's voice cut softly through the tension. "Don't speak yet. Let them see who you really are." The room seemed to hold its breath. Outside, rain fell harder, the storm echoing the chaos within me. Every reflection, every shadow, every heartbeat reminded me of the fragility of my secret. I realized the terrifying truth. This moment, this encounter, would define everything. My secret, my transformation, my identity, it all hung on a knife's edge. The stranger's gaze locked onto mine, and I could feel every part of myself exposed, analyzed, measured. My reflection shimmered one final time, whispering silently, "Are you ready to embrace everything?" I opened my mouth to respond, but no words came. The storm outside intensified, lightning flickering through the windows, illuminating the room in brief, stark flashes. The tension was unbearable. And then, the screen goes black. Viewers are left suspended, desperate to know what happens next. Did I reveal myself? Was I discovered? Or would I navigate the challenge unscathed? The house was silent except for the faint tapping of rain against the windows. My heart hadn't stopped racing since the mysterious visitor had appeared. Every shadow felt alive, every sound magnified. I could feel Emma's presence behind me, calm and watchful, but there was an edge to her gaze tonight, one that told me something big was about to happen. I touched my face, tracing the softness of my skin, the delicate arch of my brows, the subtle curve of my lips. I barely recognized this version of myself. And yet, beneath the panic and fear, there was an intoxicating thrill, the realization that I had become someone entirely new, someone powerful in a way I had never imagined. The doorbell rang again. Sharp. Insistent. My pulse jumped. This visitor was unexpected. Unfamiliar. I swallowed hard, trying to steady my trembling hands. Emma's voice floated from the kitchen. "Stephen, go. Face it. Remember everything you've learned." I opened the door, and standing there was a figure I hadn't anticipated. A woman, sharp-eyed and poised, dressed elegantly in black, with a presence that made the room feel smaller instantly. She scanned me from head to toe, her gaze piercing, assessing, calculating. "You've changed," she said, voice low and deliberate. "I need to know why." I froze. My reflection shimmered behind me in the glass, showing me the delicate, elegant figure I had become. Every instinct screamed to flee, to hide, to return to the familiar version of myself. But Emma stepped forward, placing a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "Let them see who you truly are," she said softly, her tone firm yet calm. The woman stepped inside, holding a folder, but her eyes never left me. "I don't know what's happened to you," she admitted. "But it's astonishing. You look different. You carry yourself differently. There's something unexplainable." I felt my chest tighten. Astonishing? Different? I wasn't sure if I should be insulted or exhilarated. Every word felt like a spotlight, revealing my secret in ways I hadn't imagined. Minutes passed like hours. The woman asked questions about my father, about documents, about my life. But every glance she gave me held curiosity, fascination, and an intensity that made me shiver. I moved through the conversation cautiously, keeping gestures smooth, voice calm, hiding every trace of panic. Emma's eyes never left me. I realized then that this was a test, not just of my composure, but of my ability to embrace this new identity fully. My reflection shimmered again, almost daring me to falter. And deep inside, I understood. I had to choose. Hide behind my old self, or step fully into this new version of me. Finally, the woman closed the folder and nodded slowly. "I don't fully understand this. But there's something compelling about you now. Something different." My chest tightened. I realized she might be the first person outside Emma who saw even a glimpse of who I had become. A mixture of fear, pride, and exhilaration surged through me. As she left, the rain falling heavier against the windows, Emma approached me. "You've done well," she said softly. "But this is only the beginning. The world outside is watching, and your journey has just begun." I sank into a chair, trembling, exhausted, yet buzzing with adrenaline. My reflection in the window shimmered, soft and confident, whispering silently, "You're not the person you were. You're something else entirely. Are you ready for what comes next?" I didn't have an answer yet. But I knew one thing. My life had irrevocably changed. My secret, my transformation, my identity. It was no longer something I could ignore. And the storm outside promised that more challenges, more revelations, and more transformations were yet to come. The following morning, sunlight barely pierced through the thick, gray clouds. The house felt quieter than usual, almost as if it were holding its breath, anticipating what would come next. I walked through the hallway, my reflection catching me in every mirror. Soft, elegant, unrecognizable. I had grown used to this version of myself, yet the fear of being discovered still lurked beneath the surface. Emma was in the kitchen, pouring coffee with her usual calm precision. Her gaze followed me, studying me, almost weighing me. I could feel her anticipation, her silent challenge. "Today will be different," she said, almost casually. "You're going to face someone who might change everything." I froze. Someone who might change everything? My stomach twisted. Was it another visitor? Someone from my father's business? Or worse, a stranger who could expose me to the world? Before I could ask, the doorbell rang. The sound was sharp, urgent. My pulse thundered in my chest. Emma's hand rested lightly on my shoulder. "Go," she whispered. "Remember everything. Trust yourself." I walked to the door and opened it, and my heart skipped a beat. Standing there was a man I had never seen before. Tall, imposing, dressed impeccably in a dark suit. His eyes scanning me with unnerving intensity. There was something almost predatory in the way he studied my posture, my hands, my face. "You must be Stephen," he said, voice low and precise. "I've been sent to evaluate something. Something unusual." I felt a shiver run down my spine. Evaluate something unusual? My mind raced. What could he mean? Could he see through the transformation, through the subtle cues I had learned to hide? Emma appeared behind me, calm, poised, her presence reassuring yet electrifying. "Don't worry," she said softly. "Just let him see the person you've become." The man stepped inside, moving slowly, deliberately. Every step echoed in the silent house. He examined the surroundings briefly, but his gaze quickly returned to me. "You're different," he said finally. "There's a quality to you. I've never seen anything like it. But I need to know how far it goes." My breath caught. How far it goes. Every instinct screamed to flee, to hide, to return to the familiar. But Emma's calm presence grounded me. I could feel the power of my new identity surging through me. I straightened, lifted my chin, and met his gaze directly. The man nodded subtly, as if approving something only he could see. "Interesting," he murmured. "Very interesting." I realized then that this wasn't just a test of secrecy. It was a test of control, of confidence, of embracing the transformation fully. My body, my movements, even the soft sound of my voice, all of it was being measured, analyzed. Hours passed in what felt like minutes. The man asked questions, made subtle observations, and occasionally glanced at Emma, as though seeking her approval. Every interaction was loaded with tension. I could feel the stakes rising with every word, every glance. And then he did something unexpected. He reached out, lightly brushing his fingers along the edge of my shoulder. My heart nearly stopped. The gesture was innocuous, professional even, but the intensity of his gaze made it feel like everything was about to unravel. "You're remarkable," he said softly. "But there's something hidden. Something I haven't seen yet." The words hit me like a thunderclap. Hidden? What could be hidden? My secret? My transformation? Or something deeper? Panic and thrill surged together. I glanced at Emma, who simply smiled faintly, her eyes glinting with satisfaction. "You'll see soon enough," she whispered. The man left soon after, promising to return later. But as the door closed behind him, I sank into a chair, trembling. My reflection shimmered in the window, soft, confident, yet anxious. The storm outside mirrored my own inner chaos. For the first time, I realized that this journey wasn't just about transformation. It was about exposure, identity, and control. And someone out there had already begun to unravel the fragile thread of secrecy I had so carefully maintained. The next day arrived with a heavy, oppressive air. The house seemed darker somehow, the sunlight weak and filtered through gray clouds. I moved cautiously, my reflection catching me in every mirror. My hands trembled slightly as I adjusted the soft blouse Emma had helped me pick out. Each detail of my appearance, the delicate curve of my lips, the gentle sweep of my hair, the subtle arch of my eyebrows, felt like a secret weapon and a dangerous liability at the same time. Emma appeared beside me, calm and poised as always. "Today is not just about who you are," she said, her voice low and deliberate. "It's about how you handle the world, seeing who you've become." I swallowed hard. The weight of her words pressed down on me. The mysterious visitor from yesterday had left questions unanswered, and I feared that each passing moment could reveal more of my secret than I was prepared to expose. A knock echoed sharply through the hallway. My pulse jumped. Emma gave a small, approving nod. "Go. Face it." I opened the door. Standing there was the same man from yesterday, but this time he was accompanied by two others, both equally imposing. The moment their eyes landed on me, I felt the full weight of scrutiny. Every curve, every gesture, every carefully controlled expression was being analyzed. "You've changed," the man said quietly, almost reverently. "I need to know how far this goes." My chest tightened. His words were deliberate, precise, and carried a subtle threat beneath their calm tone. Panic surged, but Emma's hand on my shoulder grounded me. I straightened, lifted my chin, and let my reflection guide me. Delicate, elegant, unrecognizable, yet undeniably me. The newcomers moved through the room with purpose, questioning, observing, testing. I answered cautiously, keeping my voice calm, every gesture measured. Every so often, one of them would pause, glancing at Emma for confirmation. And every pause made my pulse spike. One wrong move, and it would all collapse. Hours passed in tense silence, punctuated by sharp questions and subtle observations. I realized that this was more than an evaluation. It was a test of my identity, my confidence, and my ability to navigate the world in this transformed state. My secret, once mine alone, was now under the scrutiny of others, and the thrill of exposure was both terrifying and intoxicating. Finally, one of the men stepped closer, his gaze fixed on me. "You're remarkable," he said slowly. "But there's something more. Something hidden. Something you haven't shown yet." My heart raced. Hidden? Could he see through the transformation to something deeper? Fear and exhilaration collided in my chest. I glanced at Emma, who simply smiled faintly, her eyes gleaming with pride. "Are you ready?" she whispered softly. "The truth is about to be revealed." I realized then that the next moments would define everything. My identity, my secret, my transformation. It was all on the line. I drew a deep breath, letting every ounce of fear and thrill surge through me. My reflection shimmered in the window, almost daring me to falter. And then, without warning, Emma handed me a small compact mirror, a subtle signal I had learned to interpret. The gesture told me everything. This was the moment to embrace who I had become fully. With trembling hands, I adjusted my hair, straightened my posture, and stepped forward. The three visitors' eyes locked onto me, and for a moment, the room was silent. "You are different," the tallest man said finally. "But I can see, it suits you." A wave of relief, pride, and exhilaration coursed through me. My secret was safe for now. Yet deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. The world outside was watching, and my journey had just begun. The house was silent that evening, save for the faint hum of the rain against the windows. I sat by the large living room window, tracing the raindrops as they slid down the glass. My reflection stared back at me, soft, delicate, unrecognizable, but stronger than I had ever felt. I had come so far in these past days, but something deep inside whispered that the real challenge was yet to arrive. Emma entered silently, carrying a small tray with the same special drink that had started everything. She set it on the table, her eyes glinting with mischief and authority. "Drink," she said softly. "Tonight, you'll face what you've been preparing for. It's time." I hesitated, staring at the warm liquid, remembering the changes it had triggered before. Every sip had brought transformation, and every transformation had brought a thrill I could hardly contain. I drank slowly, feeling the warmth spread, the subtle tingling sensation taking over my body. My posture straightened, my movement softened, and the familiar rush of exhilaration filled me. A sudden knock at the door made me jump. My pulse thundered. Emma's eyes narrowed slightly, as if anticipating the timing. "Go," she whispered. "This is it." I opened the door. Standing there was a figure I didn't recognize. A woman sharp and commanding, her presence almost predatory. But the shock wasn't just her arrival. It was the recognition in her eyes. "You," she began, voice tight. "I know what you've become." Panic surged through me. My secret, my transformation, was at risk of being exposed. I glanced at Emma, whose expression was unreadable, almost challenging me. "Trust yourself," she whispered. The woman stepped inside, her eyes scanning me up and down. I don't understand how this happened," she admitted. "But it's real. And it's beautiful." My hands shook slightly, and I felt the thrill of fear and exhilaration crash together. Every inch of me felt exposed, every subtle gesture analyzed. I realized with a jolt that this was more than discovery. It was confrontation. The woman's gaze softened slightly, then hardened. "But why?" she demanded. "Why would anyone let this happen? Who allowed this transformation?" Emma's lips curved into a faint, knowing smile. "I did," she said softly. "And he's ready." I froze. Ready? Ready for what? My heart pounded, my chest tightened. The room seemed to shrink around me, every sound amplified, every shadow alive. "You've become remarkable," the woman continued, almost whispering now. "But there's something else. Something hidden. And I need to see it for myself." The tension was unbearable. I felt every heartbeat echoing through the room. My reflection shimmered in the window, a delicate, confident, yet anxious version of myself, urging me to embrace the moment fully. Emma handed me a small mirror. A subtle signal. The time had come. I straightened, lifted my chin, and let my movements, my posture, my entire presence declare who I had become. The woman's eyes widened in surprise, admiration, and disbelief. She stepped back slightly, almost reverently. "You," she breathed. "You're unrecognizable. And yet, entirely yourself." A wave of relief and exhilaration washed over me. But before I could celebrate, the sound of another knock rattled the door, heavier, more deliberate. I froze. Emma's eyes flickered with a rare trace of concern. "It's him," she whispered. "The one who changes everything." My stomach dropped. The ultimate challenge, the most dangerous moment yet, had arrived. My secret, my transformation, my entire identity. Everything hung by a thread. The screen would fade to black.